do is record this. So for those listening to the recording, I'm sorry I tuned in about 10 minutes late with the recording. So we're taking a leap into the idea and the commitment to egolessness and service to the world. He says this is a leap taken by millions of others on the path before us. This is a tradition of responsibility and openness, which has been handed down for generations before us, and now we too are participating in the sanity and dignity of this tradition, and we're entering into dissolving of self and being here. This is the unbroken lineage of Bodhisattvas. The great Bodhisattvas. Spring comes from them. Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, Vajrapani, the Bodhisattva of skillful means, Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom. These are sort of their hallmarks, these Bodhisattvas, and they were the great ones, the famous ones. They still inspire us. He says this lineage is unbroken because no one in this lineage has indulged him or herself in self-preservation. Instead, these bodhisattvas have constantly tried to work for the benefit of other sentient beings. And sentient beings is a broad term. It includes everything from gods, who Buddhism says exist, but they're not enlightened, all the way down through the realms to hell beings and beyond to, in the animal realm, it goes all the way down to fleas and lice and mosquitoes. They're all sentient beings, and they're all on the path to enlightenment. And we have all taken these forms, according to the Buddhist teachings, at one time or another, in the timeless expanse in which we have passed through samsara, confusion, suffering. And we've taken all of these forms: mosquito, fly, dog, human, God. He says, taking this vow is magnificent and glorious, so that those who haven't taken it might feel wretched by comparison and be envious of such richness. I don't think until you begin to get into this, we don't know what we're missing. This tradition puts tremendous demands on us. We're no longer intent on creating comfort for ourselves. We work with others. And this implies working with our other as well as the other. Our other is our projections and our sense of privacy and our longing to make things comfortable for ourselves. That's our other, and we work with that, releasing it. The other is the phenomenal world outside. Screaming kids, dirty dishes, confused spiritual practitioners, and assorted sentient beings. Fleas, flies. Really makes you think about the next time you kill that insect that's managed to invade your privacy. That could have been you at some point in the past. So we're inspired to work on ourselves as well as with others. And we no longer try to build up our own grandiosity. That's a good one. We simply try to become human beings who are genuinely able to help others. We develop precisely that quality of selflessness, which is so lacking in our world. And this is not sort of being goody two-shoes, selflessness. This is genuinely realizing that the self was a myth and that we can live here in this space, open, clear, awake. This is what meditation practice is all about. It's the commitment to this open, clear, spacious awareness without the thought of self. The thought of self pops up and then we let it go. And here we are again, right here in this space. For me, with the snow coming down and all of you on the screen, it could be scary. Scary, this idea of giving up of self. But it's the path to truth and ultimately to happiness. He says, in order to drop our self-centeredness, with which both limits our view and clouds our actions, it is necessary for us to develop a sense of compassion. Traditionally, this is done by first developing compassion for oneself. This is also called Maitri, because we're so hard on ourselves, and if we are, then we're going to be hard on others in the same ways that we're hard on ourselves. So we have to become aware of how we're treating ourselves badly and stop doing it. The first step, though, is to become aware of it. That's the hardest part, and it's also the most powerful part. Simply becoming aware of how we treat ourselves badly, think little of ourselves, castigate ourselves, criticize ourselves, and let that go. It's a waste of your good time. Then we extend this compassion towards someone very close to us. That's the second stage. People you love, your children, your spouse, your parents, whomever. And finally, toward all sentient beings, including our enemies. That's a beaut. Including our enemies. You know, when you begin to enter the Vajrayana path and you're doing Nundro, the first practice is, it's called taking refuge. But people usually call it doing prostrations, because that's what the hard part of it. And you visualize yourself standing on the shore of a lake, and you're looking out at an island in the middle of this lake. This is the practice of doing prostrations, taking refuge. Because you see, as you prostrate, you lie down on the ground or the floor or whatever, and then you stand up again. And as you do each time, you're saying, I take refuge in the Guru, the teacher, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha. And you go down, and you're visualizing this lake with an island in the middle, and on the island there's this huge tree which has 4 branches, and it's rising up, and at the junction of the 4 branches, they're all coming together at the same point on the trunk, there is a throne, and your teacher, in the form of the Buddha, enlightened, sits on that throne and is surrounded by Bodhisattvas and other Buddhas and all kinds of things, wrathful and manifestations of wisdom as well as peaceful, and it goes all the way up to the top when there's another Buddha at the top. Meanwhile, you're standing on the shore of the lake, prostrating to this, taking refuge in this, and you're surrounded on the shore of the lake, on the right and left, by your friends and relatives, and behind you, also prostrating. Everybody's prostrating in this visualization, and behind you are your enemies. I love that part. All the people that you hate or that you fear or whatever, who have hurt you, they're there, all prostrating with you. So, by taking this vow, we are very inspired to put this teaching and all teachings into practice in our everyday lives. More and more, we're beginning to hear this message of egolessness, of selflessness, of care for the world. And it makes sense to us that this is the direction that we're going to go. So he says we work with our own neurosis our own feelings of unhappiness and complaint, and use it rather than trying to cover it up or throw it out. So we have what he calls an ape instinct, which is that we feed ourselves first and only make friends with others second, and if they can feed us. And that is something that we are giving up. We're talking about a kind of superhuman instinct. We're willing to feel empty and deprived and confused, but something comes out of that. We can help somebody else. That's the key. Helping somebody else. That's really probably one of the main, or maybe the main way of beginning to step into this world of egolessness. So there's room for our confusion and chaos and ego-centeredness, and they become stepping stones into what? Into this world of being of service, of help. And that is a world without I, in which I comes smaller and smaller and maybe is not even there. He says, by taking the Bodhisattva vow, we actually present ourselves as the property of sentient beings. This is so important and powerful. Depending on the situation, we are willing to be a highway, a boat, a floor, or a house. You think of someone, maybe you have someone in your life that you love who is angry with you, who won't communicate with you, and you feel so hurt. But what we're being enjoined to do is for that person to be a house, a boat, a stepping stone, a floor of service. It's really turning things around and presenting us with a very difficult challenge. He says, as the earth sustains the atmosphere and outer space accommodates the stars, galaxies, and all the rest, we are willing to carry the burdens of the world. This is the path of the Bodhisattva, it's the path of Dharma, it's the path to Buddhahood. And he says, and then he makes this warning all the way through, that it's essential to avoid what's called idiot compassion. That means is you help others help themselves, but more than that, you don't give an alcoholic alcohol. You don't feed a person's neurosis because they want you to. Instead, you feed their sanity. He says, and this is a hard one, especially given what all the things I've been just saying to you. One of the obstacles to the Bodhisattva discipline, to the Bodhisattva's activity, is the absence of humor. How about that? We have to tell jokes. I'm kidding. But there has to be a sense of humor. We could take the whole thing too seriously. He says beginners often get caught in serious militancy, which is quite different from the lightheartedness and joy of the Bodhisattva path. So we have to, on the one hand, we're giving up the sense of self and selfishness, and on the other hand, there's a lightheartedness and a joy to it. I think that this is one of the most profound teachings that we'll ever encounter. The entrance, I mean, there's plenty of profundity to come, but this one is such a shocker. He says, in the beginning, you may have to fake being open and joyous. And this requires that you continuously take some sort of leap. A leap is always taking place on the Bodhisattva path. The leap is the commitment just something that you only half understand at the moment, that you're going to be of service, and why. And the leap is that it's not clear yet. It's coming clear, but it's not yet. So you're going to do it anyhow. You're going to take this leap. I mean, what have you got to lose? Really? I'm not going to die from doing this, maybe. So there's a tremendous sense of celebration and joy in finally being able to join the family of the Buddhas. At last, we have decided to claim our inheritance, which is enlightenment. We are moving into the world of enlightenment. Enlightenment is not going to be the personal possession of I. It's reality. And it's without I. It's ego-less. I'll point out this, the word egoless. If you go to the Oxford English Dictionary, I haven't done this in a long time, but years ago anyhow was the case, and look up the word egolessness or egoless, guess who it's attributed to? You know, they give attribution to where a word is created in the OED, the Oxford English Dictionary. Trungpa Rinpoche coined the term egolessness or egoless. It doesn't exist in English. I mean, this idea in Sanskrit, it's anatma. The idea in Sanskrit or in Hinduism was that, you know, each individual has a soul, an eternal, ongoing soul, which never dies, and eventually just becomes part of the universal reality, which is called Brahman. And Buddhism said, no, there's no such thing as a soul. It's a myth. Each one of us has no eternal, ongoing substance, core. And that doctrine is called the doctrine of anatma. A is a negation. Anatma, no soul. Trungpa Rinpoche, and there's the Tibetan equivalent as well, which I'm blanking on now. It won't matter anyhow to anybody. But Trungpa Rinpoche borrowed the Freudian term, ego. Freud coined that and came up with egolessness. Ego in Latin. Ego means I in Latin. So, he says, so we have no doubts as we go along on this path and we begin to experience this, that a fully developed enlightened being exists in us already. It's the truth. The myth, the lie, is that I, with all its problems, its doubts, its hopes and fears, its self-criticisms, that exists. That's the lie. And we're beginning to realize that egolessness is the truth. So we're settling down in this world. In fact, we're even giving up our ambition to attain enlightenment in favor of relieving the suffering and difficulties of people. Because it's immediate. Here we are. We're in the middle of all this suffering and difficulty. And as we give up self-concern more and more, what's left but to be of service to the people around us who are asking for it? And then he says, nevertheless, helplessly, we attain enlightenment anyhow. So, we're transplanting bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is a word. Bodhi means awake, chitta means mind. So we're transferring bodhicitta, or we're not really transplanting it, as he puts it here, but we're discovering it because it's already in us. He says the Bodhisattva vow is a leap out of our self-interest, in which we begin to let go of our egocentric approach to spirituality. The Bodhisattva vow, in the absolute sense, is the complete transplantation of bodhicitta, awakened mind, into our hearts, this is, who knows this, but I'll tell you over and over again, it's said it's already there. We don't have to transplant it in from somewhere else. What we're doing is discovering it, revealing it, our awakened mind and our awakened heart. Now he talks about relative bodhicitta as opposed to absolute, because I've been really, at this point, he and this chapter has been talking about absolute bodhicitta, the fully realized, the end result bodhicitta, awakened mind, the awakened mind of the bodhisattva. But there's relative bodhicitta as well, which is very important. It's something we all have. And what it is the intention to do all this. And he uses the analogy, he says it's like you're going to take a trip. So you go to the train station and you buy the ticket. That's relative bodhicitta, and that's what we're all doing here in this room, studying the Dharma and the teachings and listening to this and developing this intention. We're buying the ticket. and then you take the ticket and you get on the train and take the trip. And that's actually doing it. So that's where we're all going. It's a great analogy. That's relative bodhicitta and absolute bodhicitta. Absolute bodhicitta is you get on the train and take the trip. He says, again, another analogy, it's like a heart transplant. We're replacing our old heart, which is oriented towards ego and self-aggrandizement and suffering, truly suffering, with a new heart, characterized by compassion and larger vision. And the quality that makes this transplant possible is our own gentleness. So in a sense, this new heart has been present all along. He says our sense of vulnerability that we need to protect ourselves is an obstacle to the sense of warmth. So on the Bodhisattva path, we need to take chances. Chances of what? Chances of opening, chances of being hurt, chances of being vulnerable. Extending ourselves without reservation for the sake of others. Oh boy, can this be a challenge? And I keep coming back to this. You've got somebody in your life who's really hurt you. And perhaps you've become estranged. And this is enjoining you, enjoining us, to take a chance and extend ourselves for their sake, not for my sake. And it is the discovery of our own wakefulness or awakened mind that creates the trust that allows us to take such a chance. The awakened mind is simply the ability to rest here in clarity in the present moment. And that kind of wakefulness, once we begin to acknowledge it, develops constantly and can't be destroyed. We're all on this path. All of you are meditators. All of you are, in one sense, in one degree or another, and I might scare you here, committed. Committed to working on yourselves and opening yourselves to the real world, which can be painful because we're giving up ego and self-concern, and yet joyful because we're beginning to really step into reality, which has been waiting for us all along. And we begin to give up personal territory. We begin to develop friendliness toward the world and take personal responsibility, give up blaming others, and take the blame ourselves, rightly or wrongly. But we take the blame ourselves as an act of generosity. It's our duty to do so because it's the gesture of opening to this world, of giving up selfishness which is a myth, a lie, a mistake, and a terrible suffering. He says, in fact, on the Bodhisattva path, such non-aggression, by taking the blame, becomes one's total view of the world. Such non-aggression becomes one's total view of the world. That means we're just seeing the world without self-aggrandizement, without selfishness, without me, self, I. He talks a lot about taking the blame. You know, those of you who've studied the Lojong slogans, those are the 57. The most powerful one, the one that everybody always remembers, is drive all blames into one, and the one is me. Take the blame. And I remember Trungpa Rinpoche in his book, he says, you can do it. You know, you can take the blame. I've done it many times myself, thousands of times, he says. Yeah. He said that. So he says, having given up everything with the refuge vow. The refuge vow is you're giving up your ambitions, and we begin to become inspired to relate with the world. This is the Bodhisattva inspiration, to relate with this world. He says, we are barely ready to take the Bodhisattva vow, but we can't hold back. We can't sit and sulk about our negativities, about our unhappinesses. We need to go out and work with people. This is what the Bodhisattva vow is about. This is the way you put it into action. You go out and work with people. You don't just sit around and contemplate. Our own inconvenience is not considered important. So we're giving up that self-indulgence. And here it is, inviting all sentient beings as one's guests. And there's a song that's going through my mind that I can't quite identify. Be my guest, be my guest. Do you know that? Remember that song? Anybody know where it's from? It's a part of a play, I think.
No, it's Beauty and the Beast.
It's what?
Beauty and the Beast.
Say it again.
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast, and the song is Be My Guest, right? Well, here it is. We're being told to do this for the whole world, for all sentient beings. Be my guest. If I could have identified it, I would have gotten it. We could have played it. So compassion is the heart of the practice of Bodhisattva activity, compassion. It happens as a sudden glimpse initially, simultaneous awareness and warmth. We come to this egolessness and experience warmth. He said, looking at it fully, it's a threefold process. First, a sense of warmth in oneself. Second, a sense of seeing through confusion. And third, a sense of openness. The whole process happens very abruptly. Warmth, lack of confusion fades away, and openness. He says we might experience some hesitation when we're trying to do this. But once we look at our everyday life as an ongoing practice, we begin to identify our egotism and let it go beyond it. And there will be opportunities for each one of us, different, according to our circumstances, our history, our personality, for giving up our egotism and being of service, perhaps to someone that we had no intention to be of service to, no wish to. Maybe those people that we're so resentful of, perhaps, offer us the greatest opportunity to give up our egotism and our selfishness. Yeah. He says the Bodhisattva's activity, energetic and gentle, is based upon clear knowledge. Clear knowledge means clear seeing, beyond hope, beyond fear, especially beyond fear. Ego is so fearful. And we have to be able to see the situation clearly, beyond fear, and relate to it that way. What a challenge. We're taking a leap. He keeps saying that, pretending a bit. But this is necessary in order to begin to develop our confidence, to work with each situation simply and directly, which is the paramitas. So we have to constantly take a chance. We're leaping into egolessness. We're leaping into lack of self-consciousness. The paramita of generosity, particularly connected with the notion of sharing knowledge or teaching. The paramita of generosity, remember, it's the first paramita when you begin to discover this egolessness. And when you do that, he says, in fact, everyone who takes the Bodhisattva vow is regarded as a potential teacher. There you go. So maybe what we're going to have to do is reinstate Thursdays when we gave people the opportunity to teach. So each one of you, of us, is regarded as a potential teacher, growing more and more into it. He says, by giving away something personal and significant in our lives, we are helping to clarify our attachments and to overcome the habitual pattern of materialism. That materialism means self-aggrandizement. And as part of this, we're abandoning the idea of the attainment of enlightenment. It becomes irrelevant. It comes along in spite of us. He says the paramita of discipline, that's the second paramita, is based on a sense of trust in oneself. That is so important. I keep repeating, I've said it over and over. He said it on some other occasions that self-criticism, the lack of self-trust, is the Buddhist version of original sin. When you don't trust yourself, you criticize yourself, and you see other people and everybody else in the world in the same way. So the second paramita is based on a sense of trust in oneself, which allows the Bodhisattva to work skillfully with whatever is happening, beyond the myth of what's wrong with me, to the point of being willing to commit even immoral acts out of compassion for sentient beings, so-called immoral acts. So true action arises out of a sense of trust in one's own sanity, compassion, clear seeing, and it involves arousing that trust in others. There is a sense of heroism, of raising the banner of sanity and proclaiming the open way. This person keeps coming back. I'm going to let them in for a moment, I think. Well, I can't. Anyhow, so this is being recorded. Giving up personal territory. We have to do that. There's tremendous room to work with people without one-upmanship, or impatience. This is all part of the discipline of morality. Trust in oneself. The next paramita, the fourth, I think, is the paramita of patience. We stop blaming others, and we're willing to work with our own emotions through the practice of meditation. We don't return a person's threat, and at the same time we prevent further aggression by allowing the other person's energy to undercut itself, so you don't respond to their aggression. How are we doing on time? We're doing okay. The exertion paramita, that's the fourth, virya in Sanskrit, involves being willing to work hard for the sake of others. It really comes out of inspiration and joy that we have tremendous energy to work for others. He says we no longer indulge our laziness and self-centeredness. The Bodhisattva is inspired to overcome such laziness by developing simplicity, lack of complication, just clear awareness and responsiveness. So we cut through the confusing conceptual frameworks that buttress our egos. Our ego is always finding complicated philosophies. The paramita of transcendent knowledge. We see the paramita of meditation. That's the fifth one. It's the willingness to work unceasingly with our own neurosis and speed. And we do this by coming back into awareness. The paramita of transcendent knowledge, prajna, which is the culmination of these, is giving up the language and perspective of ego, giving up self-aggrandizement as the view of the world and self. And it's based on the practice of meditation, clear seeing, beyond egotism and self-concern. So basically the idea of the Bodhisattva activity is to extend hospitality beyond our egotism, beyond our irritations, beyond all the little things that constellate around I, hope, fear, judgment, anxiety, constant depression. How about that one? It arises as a habit, a habitual pattern of neurosis, of self-attack. He again warns us about idiot compassion for others, that in working with other people, we're not being idiot compassionate people. And he gives as example, a doctor who spares the patient the painful procedure. That would be idiot compassion. Or medicine that they need to be well, or the mother who spoils the child. All of that, both of those are idiot compassion. Real compassion is not based on simple-minded avoidance of pain. Real compassion is uncompromising in its allegiance to basic sanity. This, here now. So taking the Bodhisattva vow is not for the pleasure of ego. It's beyond oneself. We're planting the seed of a fast-growing tree. Planting the seed of ego, we're planting a grain of sand, he says. Such heroism or bigness of mind leads to a tremendous expansion of perspective. There is only the vast idea of unceasingly helping all sentient beings as limitless as space along the path to enlightenment, because that's what we're helping them do, helping them wake up just as we ourselves are being helped to wake up. I'm going to stop here and invite you to make comments or questions or whatever you like, and then we'll just close this out at the end here by talking about the ceremony. Anybody want to make a complaint? Whatever you want to do. Comment, question. Pretty radical, don't you think? Utterly radical, life-changing, life-transforming. It's like a 180-degree reversal of the way we've been living our lives all this time. Speaking as one who's 79 years old, how did that happen? Buddhism says there's no such thing as time, by the way. When you get to the Dzogchen, the Great Perfection teachings, they talk about that. Time is a myth, just an idea.
John,
Yes, Jill.
I have trepidation about after the vow. Okay, after you've taken the refuge vow. I mean, there are, you know, that you are to practice shamatha and vipassana. You are to pursue those practices. But here, it's unclear to me. After the vow, like what concrete steps? It's not really spelled. There's a theory given, but there are no concrete steps given about what do you do.
Each one of us has to find our own way. And I'll make some suggestions. I mean, one is that, you can involve yourself with helping people who are poor or homeless or whatever, whatever inspires you, but also you can teach. And I'm going to try and create opportunities for that to happen. But other than that, from what I can present you with that way, there are endless opportunities to be of service to other people. And you need to find the ones that inspire you, that make sense to you, that open your heart, that you want to do, not because you ought to or should. That's ego again. But because it inspires you with feelings of happiness and love.
So are you saying, John, that the opportunities will present themselves to us?
I don't know. What do you think? Do you think they will?
I don't know either. Sometimes they do.
Yeah.
I don't know how, do we go out looking for them, or do they come to us? Because
I don't think there's any rule about that one way or the other, but I do think if we wanted to, one idea I've had is that we could form like a club and get together and talk about ways that we've found to be of service, that are gratifying, that are happy making, that are truly of benefit. So we could have a club and we can, help each other do this.
it may be challenging too.
Yes,
Opportunities that have been challenging.
absolutely. And working with our enemies, that's a good one. The people that we're resentful of. There's a big challenge. But I like
I
this
would
idea.
love that, because sometimes there's I've had a lot of aggression around me the last few weeks on the campus of Columbia, and
Oh my gosh,
it's very lonely, to try to respond in a non-aggressive way to a lot of aggression. It's not an easy place to be. So this conversation today and this teaching today has been especially helpful to me. So I
really.
really appreciate it.
Emily works at, for those of you who don't know, works at Columbia. You're in the library, right? In preservation of
I am. I'm in the library, and the encampment is right outside. So the folks that are in the encampment are frequently, I mean, are the library is a refuge as well. It's a place that's supposed to be peaceful and welcoming to everybody. So we do feel that we've stayed relatively neutral, but it's not been easy.
Wow. Yeah.
I would think you would need a lot of patience or practicing the paramita of patience to not react to the aggression.
Are you speaking to Emily?
Yes. And then, John, I do have a question or thought or comment. The paramitas seem to all work together. We talk about them separately, but I think they all have to work together because without clear seeing, without prajna, it's hard to have generosity or patience or discipline. And then, if that's the case, avoiding idiot compassion, do we really, we should focus on seeing things clearly. And then it is said that if you see things clearly, the Bodhisattva will know exactly what to do in every situation because they're not operating from ego. Is that how we avoid idiot compassion?
Well, there's no guarantees on that. You know, that you're going to be smart enough to do that, but that's the attempt. Prajna, you're right, but prajna is there from the beginning of the Bodhisattva path, from Paramita 1. It's just that at the sixth bhumi, it really blossoms more. Each one of these is blossoming, but you're absolutely right. They're all part of that enlightened, awakened mind. They're there, it's there growing and coming into fruition or prominence. Prajna, yeah, you can't be on the Bodhisattva path without it. Prajna is the ability to see things with total clarity, without prejudice, without preconception, without self-concern, which clouds our vision so powerfully. That's prajna. And it's there from the beginning. It's just that it gets perfected, you might say, at the level of the seventh bhumi. And then it's there throughout the rest of the path. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That when you enter the path, really all the perfections are there. It's just that they're sort of lighting up at different stages and becoming more powerful. Don.
I would just like to make for whatever it's worth, a comment from Jill's question. At least for me personally, it seems like there are opportunities like just immediately, like maybe it depends on how neurotic one is, and I'm just really neurotic, but it seems like just getting out of bed and thinking what my day is going to be like, and maybe developing some fear and resentment towards life because there's this that I have to do and that I have to do, and then there's the person I'm living with, and then all of the possible resentments or whatever that comes from that. Then there's driving to the store. You know, in other words, or the customers I meet in the store, the clerk. It seems like, at least for me, like there's opportunities everywhere to practice this. They're literally right at our door. Like in Emily's case, it's literally right at her job. But I just wonder, at least for me, it's like they're there all the time.
Well said. Well said. I think absolutely true. We all have such unlimited opportunities, you know, and so many, including working with ourselves and our own depression, our dreams at night, or whatever it may be that comes up in the middle of the night.
John,
Jill.
my another thought I had is that when you progress from the Hinayana to the Mahayana,
Say it again. When you what?
progress, when you move up, move on, advance to the Mahayana stage, your there is supposedly, correct me on this, there should be more focus on realizing emptiness. And in realizing emptiness, compassion naturally arises. And with the natural arising of compassion comes all of the other actions, all of the paramitas that we should practice. Is that a way of looking at this?
It's one way.
I'm
Another
trying
way,
to find my way into this, and I'm thinking that just the deep focus on emptiness would be the way into compassion, which compels every other good action that we're supposed to be taking. Does that sound like I am misguided or possibly on
no.
a productive path here?
Yes, absolutely. That sounds like you're on a productive path. Each one of us has our particular slant in the way in, you know, and it'll vary from one person to the next. Um, it may be that you focus on emptiness, but emptiness also, is comprised of two parts. Emptiness is the first part of it is the discovery that I doesn't exist.
Yes.
And that's what's being described a lot here in these paramitas. The other aspect of emptiness is that other doesn't exist either. He says this right at the beginning, I and other. And that we live within this open dimension of freedom and beauty. And that is what you're talking about, I think, is this real appreciation of the beauty and openness, call it emptiness, of life. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you absolutely. You're on the path. These are difficult things to work with because they counteract our habitual neurosis, which we're so attached to. It's so ingrained in us habitually. Some
Yes,
of you,
I'm sorry, John. I have a lot of trepidation here because I do not think of myself as a selfless person at this point. Never have thought of myself that way.
that's
And
good.
I,
It's really good. Because if you thought of yourself as a selfless person, listen to that. Who's thinking of oneself as a selfless person? I am. There it is again. So you're dead on, Jill. You can't. Oh, I'm so selfless. What's wrong with that? It's really a matter of how we act, how we behave with the people around us. The description selflessness comes later, after the fact. I mean, you're doing things in your life, I know, that are very generous.
I don't know that, John. I have no sense of that.
I do. With your husband, your life, and your commitment to this path. Even just being committed to this path is a commitment to generosity. It's opening. But all of this has inspired you, inspired each of us. Sarah,
Fact that you're here today and that I see you as a part of our Sangha um, leads me to believe that you're selfless. But Also, I wanted to bring up an analogy that I refer to often, is like if I have a broken arm, I'm going to do what it takes to take care of that broken arm. And I'm not going to congratulate myself for taking care of it. So when you refer to the emptiness, when someone else is broken, you're just going to take care of it and not feel proud. It's just, it's broken. So you have to fix it. I refer to that a lot.
Steve.
So I guess the thing that my trepidation, my struggle with this is we've got Maitri on one hand, where we are compassionate towards ourselves, and then but we're trying to almost be like a doormat for other people. We're sacrificing, but at the same time, there's also idiot compassion, and so there's this kind of like, at what point am I giving too much that I'm hurting myself? I'm not being kind or compassionate to myself. Is kind of the struggle that, like people who are in toxic relationships, for example. Like, I guess I don't know if there's a way to draw the line, but I guess I see that struggle, that conflict. Maybe making a complaint. I don't know.
You're what?
Making a complaint, after all. I don't know.
It's a matter of your intelligence and your self-judgment. You're the one who decides where to draw the line. And
I was afraid you were going to say that.
Yeah, I was afraid of that. Huh? But I mean, there are many of you in this room who are in helping professions, and you're being thrust into this situation willy-nilly by your choice of profession. In fact, your choice of profession was probably an early, if not later, indication of your inclination towards this path. Many of you are involved in helping professions. And so your opportunity is easier to find than for people who are not. But I mean, there are no guarantees. You have to take the leap. I keep saying that again and again. You have to take the leap, right? The leap into, maybe you're going to screw it up. Who knows? But then you move on. There'll always be another challenge and another opportunity ongoing. And personally, I have great faith in your ability to survive and keep working on it and keep developing the understanding that you need to progress and to be of service and to live a meaningful life, a meaningful and happy life. The fact that each one of you, all of us, have come to this, have gotten this far, is a great indication. Mariana.
Yes, I'd like to speak to Jill. I was speaking with my husband before I totally chose to do this, participate in this vow. And I said to him, I'm not selfless. I love clothes and jewelry and shopping. I even wrote a story called Fashionista Bodhisattva that I'm going to send to John. And I had this realization that I really don't have to change anything about myself. I'm enough. And it's okay that I love all these things. That doesn't mean that I'm not a bodhisattva and giving of myself and committing myself to be of service in the world, which I do. And it brings me great joy. But so do earrings.
The fashionista.
And I think we need a sense of humor also. I have a sense of humor. If I make it significant, then that's not being a bodhisattva. That's my ego making it significant. And you're enough. I don't know you. I'm not part of your sangha. But I wanted to say that to you.
Yeah. It's so important to have faith in oneself, to not beat oneself up, not be self-critical, to see the opportunities more than the failures. I remember years ago reading a book about, among other things, I used to be a coach like Mariana, maybe others in this room. And this was a book about coaching, and it talked about how people, what breeds success, for instance, in a business person. That optimism is a much better frame of mind to achieve business success than pessimism. Pessimism is always looking at what can go wrong, what has gone wrong, what needs to be corrected. Optimism is seeing the possibilities, the opportunities, and that people who are optimistic are much more successful in business than people who are pessimistic. I mean, I was in business and I surrounded myself with optimists because I was a pessimist. I was the one who was given the job of always sort of finding out what could go wrong and taking the steps to prevent it, which is useful, very useful, but not nearly as useful as the optimists who were around me seeing, oh, we could do this, or we could do that. Look at that opportunity there. So we're being enjoined here to be optimists and see the opportunities that we all have for living a productive, happy, a life that contributes to the lives of the people around us. Someone else had their hand up and got lost in the melee here. Vicky.
Yes, I just saw an image of something the other day that really brought all this to mind. Egolessness, emptiness, the trickery of samsara, that we think all these samsaric things are reality, I, me. It was a photograph of one of the astronauts who had done the very first walk in space with no tether at all.
No tether.
No tether at all, from one piece of the equipment to the other. So he's in his astronaut suit. There's just blackness and it's groundless. I mean, it just spoke to me. This is what I really am in this life and death. That's all we are. It's so strange that it's frightening, but because of this practice and the 4 years that I've known you, I can look at that and actually just observe it and go, wow, instead of running from it. And when you do that, everything else falls away. Jill, you were saying, I don't see myself as selfless. That's just another story. All we tell ourselves are fear-based ego. What will people think if I'm selfish or selfless? It's all just this chatter. All that really is that untethered groundlessness. And it's terrifying, but as you get a little less terrified, you realize it's so spacious. There's so much opportunity there. You're free of all these fears. And once that's gone, all you have is concern for the suffering of others. That's all that there is. I just sort of saw that in that image.
Yeah. Each one of us has our challenges. That's terrific, Vicki. Thank you. That's so helpful. Jill you thought that so too? How so? You're muted. You're not muted, but we can't hear you.
Can't hear me?
Now we can.
No.
The image that Vicky used and her thoughts about chatter and what I think of myself, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, it is not, it's chatter, it's not truth. And I will find my way. With sincerity in my heart, and trying not to examine myself too closely and see where I'm tripping up and so on. Just, I will find my way. I will find my way into the space that we're all working toward.
Yeah.
With your help, John, with the help of the Sangha, with being able to check in with people like you.
And me with your help. I can't tell you how much help it gives me. Because, like all of us, the biggest enemy I have and we all have is self-attack, self-criticism, lack of self-confidence. So thank you. We're proceeding on this path together, all of us. I'm going to close here by just saying a few things about the ceremony that's going to happen on May 11th. We'll be inviting people who are not taking the vow but want to witness it. They can come if they've taken the vow previously. People who haven't taken the vow can't come to this. And the purpose of this ceremony is to help you develop the inclination to enlightenment. I'm just reading from my notes. So you'll do a bunch of things like that. There'll be a point at which we do prostrations. You'll be prostrating to the shrine, which is behind me here, and to me as the representative of the lineage, not to me personally. Okay. And if you can't do a prostration, we'll be working with you because we're all, look at this group. The average age here is pretty impressive, I'll bet. And so we're going to be working with the physical limitations that many of us have. I can't do a full prostration anymore, not nearly. I mean, but each one of us will have what they can do, and it's really the act of making homage and recognizing the beauty and the importance of the lineage and these teachings that come to us through this lineage of people who've all gone through what we're going through. And we'll take the vow. Have any of you gotten the booklet? I sent it out as a PDF. Did anyone not get it? There's a booklet that I sent out as a PDF. It's not that one. Hold on a second. Where is my?
Oh yeah, the Nalanda
Yeah.
Nalanda translation. Yeah.
What is it called?
It's Bodhisattva Vow, the Nalanda translation. He sent it. It's about 20 pages that he sent in PDF. I finally printed it out yesterday.
No, John.
Here it is. And I've sent it to you as a PDF. If you haven't gotten it, in it, it has things like it has, and this is important, you have to have this for the ceremony because you'll be reading things from it. The first thing it has is the Bodhisattva vow ceremony on page 4 that describes it. And then it has the morning liturgy for Mahayana students on page 6. There's a section on friendliness, which we won't be using. And then it also has the 7 points of mind training. Those are the Lojong slogans, and we won't be using that, but it's in there. And then it has the 46 ways in which a bodhisattva fails. And you can read about them. And not preventing getting a bad reputation, not controlling your kleshas. There's 46 of these things. But the main thing we're going to be using is the first 2 items, the Bodhisattva vow ceremony and morning liturgy for Mahayana students. And I sent it out as a PDF. If you haven't gotten it, please let me know and by email, and I'll send it to you again by return mail. You can also, I encourage you to buy it. And I sent out the link for that too from the Nalanda Translation Committee because it costs $15. It's a very nice booklet, much nicer than the PDF, and it supports the Nalanda Translation Committee and their efforts, which are worthwhile. And you can just go to Nalanda Translation Committee online, and you will find, ask for, what is this called? Bodhisattva vow and practice. Bodhisattva vow and practice. And it's much nicer to have the booklet anyhow. It's pretty, isn't it? That's Trungpa Rinpoche calligraphy on the front. Okay, so come to the ceremony, dress up a little bit. It's a celebration. Bring something to drink and eat. We'll be having toasts after the ceremony. And be prepared, if you wish, to make a toast to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, or anything else. Let's see. So we'll be talking about the ceremony as we go through it. You'll be getting oh, you've already got your Bodhisattva name. Anybody here not have their certificate? You. Oh, Emily, I sent you yours.
Well, you did last year, and I seem to have misplaced it. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh,
I did have one, but I cannot find it. I don't know what happened to
so
it.
Jill, you haven't gotten it, right? I know.
I haven't gotten the name or the booklet.
Well,
Should I send you an email reminding you of both?
hold on a second. So Mariana, what are you missing?
My Bodhisattva name.
But you've got the booklet?
Yes.
And there was a third person? No, just those 2? Okay. Jill, I'll send you the certificate and the booklet.
All right.
And Mariana, I'll send you the certificate with your name.
Okay, thank you.
And I need the certificate as well.
Who's saying that?
Emily. Sorry.
Emily, right.
Emily. Okay. You need the certificate. Wow,
Thank
sure.
you.
Okay. Okay. That'll happen right after we hang up here. So dress up, bring some food and drink. Oh, know your refuge name. As we read through the ceremony, you'll be using your own refuge name. Anybody not know their refuge name? You can let me know, and I'll look it up for you and send it to you.
No, but do you want us to say it in Tibetan or in the English translation?
If you can say it in Tibetan, do it. If not, in the English translation. Yeah.
Okay.
There'll be a point where you say I and your name, blah, 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 blah. You know, do this and that and vow. There are several parts of the ceremony where you do that. But if you want to say it in English, we're all going to be doing it together, so it doesn't really matter. And again, what the ceremony says, and it's really written for people who are able-bodied, is you do these 3 prostrations and then you kneel on one knee. No, if you have difficulty doing that, don't do it. Find some other way of, just sitting or whatever is going to be comfortable for you. This is the Bodhisattva vow for sexta, septa, and octogenarians, and maybe some younger people too. He says, the name you've gotten represents your commitment to basic sanity and your willingness to devote your life to all sentient beings. It's really a reminder. And you've made a link with your Buddha nature, your Tathagata Garbha. Finally, the Bodhisattva ends, it's a very simple ceremony. He says, it ends with the extreme challenge of committing yourself to people without consideration for your own comfort. And the key to meeting such a challenge is fearlessness. By taking the vow, you enter the fearless world of the warrior. That was the end of this chapter. It's really it's about fearlessness among other things. I mean, very important. So any other comments or?
Oh, John,
Andrew?
do you want to touch on the gift aspect of the ceremony?
Okay, I sent out a aspect, a thing, a description, right?
Yeah, you did. Yes.
I think that pretty much covers it, but I'll say it again. There'll be a point where you are asked to make a gift, and you typically, if we were doing this live, the shrine would have a table in front of it, and you would come up one by one and place your gift on the shrine. You'd bow to the preceptor, you'd bow to the shrine, and the preceptor is always it's not me, that's going to be me, but it's not me as a individual. It's as the representative of the lineage, and the shrine too. And then you place it on the shrine and you go. But since we don't have that, what you're simply going to do is, if you wish, and I hope you do, say what it is you're giving. You can, if you wish, to say a few words about it. I think everybody'd be interested, like why you're giving this gift, it's how it's meaningful to you, and to whom you're giving it. And you can give it to anybody. You could give a gift to the Columbia Library. I don't care. It could be anything but the main thing is that it's of significance to you, to generosity. It can be money, it can be an object, it can be anything that expresses your generosity and willingness to give up your own ego.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So shall we just dedicate the merit then? Does everybody know the dedication of merit, or should I put it up on screen?
On screen, please.
Okay. Hold on a second. Yeah. I'm going to mute all so that we don't have cacophony. And I'll unmute after we do this chant. By this merit, may all obtain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of the Rigdon's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, John. This is really lovely.
Thanks, John. Thanks,
Thank
people.
you, Joan. That was wonderful.
Very
Thank you.
helpful.
Thank
If
you.
anybody wants to talk further about their vow, just let me know and we can schedule a meeting.
Nice to meet you all.
Yeah.
You too,
You
Marianne.
too.
See you soon. You're such a gem.
Oh, stop it, Nick.
You are. You're a
Good gem.
precious, precious person.
Well, there goes my ego.
Just say thank you.
Lovely to know you.
You too.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Bye
It's
bye.
crazy here.
I know it's like 80 something here and you're in the middle of a blizzard.
Want to see?
Yeah.
Hold on a sec. How do I do this? Oh yeah. Give me a second. I'm going to show you with my phone. I've got you on computer screen here. Let's see if I can make this work. Oh, there we go. Let's see. Okay. What's this one? Okay, I can't do it because the meeting is being recorded. See
Oh,
you.
I got it.
Okay. Bye.